Okay, yeah, I'm Simon. I'm from Adjust. Adjust is a mobile attribution analytics solution for mobile apps. Now, in English, that means that we provide people with the art of connecting clicks to installs. So what we do is we look at your user acquisition campaigns, we look at where are people installing the app, where are they coming from, and what do they do later on in the app. So the starting point is this attribution, taking all the users that come into your app and telling you where they came from, whether it's Twitter, Facebook, social channels, whether it's paid ads, which is probably the focus, whether it's your newsletter campaigns or whatever else it is. Then we combine this with this sophisticated kind of dynamic analytics engine where we use to look at the engagement over a longer period of time. And finally, we take a look at the store stats to tell you how your user acquisition campaigns affect your rankings, your reviews, your ratings once you've actually run the campaigns. Okay, so a lot of people in the room probably already know this. We're based here in Berlin. We've been here for 3 years. And we do work for some of the largest companies here in Germany. We also work for some of the more, let's say, UA-heavy startups over here. And thanks to now our San Francisco office, we also work with people like Dina, Gree, Uber, Hotel Tonight to provide them the same service. We actually just launched also in Shanghai and Tokyo. We're working a little bit with people like Kingsoft, Changyu, a few folks like that. So I think with having tracked around 3 billion sessions monthly, I think we have some sense of how these people behave and how you get users properly. And so when I was working, or when I worked with Adjust, most of my time, what I've been doing is I've been helping people understand how this technology works. I've helped people implement these various tracking techniques, so I suppose geek is pretty appropriate. I'm sort of more from the product tech side, so the sales spiel doesn't really excite me quite as much as, let's say, new features, new product stuff, new technologies that we're rolling out. And this is kind of the topic I want to get into on today. So we've been working on a little thing that I've been super excited about, and I've been pushing our clients to try it out and give it a shot. And I finally have a little story about how that came to be. So, harnessing real-time marketing data, right? Basically, the story starts somewhere earlier this year when we were sitting around in the office, right? And we were working on an update to our SDK. Now, to do all this magic with the users and the user acquisition and whatnot, doing all this tracking, we provide a sophisticated open source SDK. So this SDK sits in the app and it sort of pulls down data from what's going on in the app and crunches it, thinks about it a little bit, and then talks to our servers every now and then. And so we were thinking there, we were sitting there thinking, okay, well, we talk to the servers do all this crunching and all this data, we pull in these 3 billion sessions every month, we know where every user comes from, so why doesn't the servers talk back to the SDK? Because normally what happens is you have an SDK, it sends a message up to the server, and the server responds with 200. Okay, everything is fine. And you're asking yourself, well, we have this opportunity because we do all this stuff in real time. As soon as you've sent the message, we know where the user comes from. We know what they're doing. So we might as well tell the SDK right back, okay, great, the user you have on your phone, where did he come from, what did he click on, what ads did he see, all that sort of stuff. And so I get pretty excited about this. Because I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that most mobile apps that we use today are, let's say, static. And when I say static, I don't mean that they don't do much. I don't mean that they just look back at you and don't respond. They do have a lot of whooshes and swoops and various things you can do with them, and they behave differently depending on what you're trying to do, and there's all this really cool stuff going on. But what I mean by static is that it doesn't actually listen to who you are, what you were doing. So you have all these guys who are doing all this really complicated processing to figure out where are you coming from, what was your context, what was the ads you were looking at. But once they come in the app, they just use that data over on the server. And they look at it, and they optimize their campaigns and whatnot from that. Whereas the mobile app in itself, if you open it, it doesn't really necessarily say anything about that. You come from an ad, but it doesn't say anything about what you were doing. So, on the other hand, with websites, that's exactly the opposite thing, right? If someone sends me a link to a website, that goes to a particular page about what we were talking about. If I Google for something, that sends me to a particular piece of content. And this is normal on the web. It's always been this way on the web. We have the links, and they go to specific things. Whereas on mobile, we have this sort of app store black box. While we have all this tech to figure out what the difference is, we still don't have a really solid way of sending people right from the original, let's say, ad or creative pass the App Store into the app properly. And so that means that, my favorite example is that because I'm really, really bad at planning, I usually have to Google for hotels last minute when I fly to conferences and things. And I will Google for stuff like last minute hotel, Munich. And if I'm on my PC, what happens is I click on the link or I click on the AdWords ad, and it sends me right to a page that shows me, okay, here are all the hotels in Munich, sorted by price. Done. Deal. If I see an ad for Booking.com's mobile app, it doesn't do that. It sends me to the App Store, I install it, and it says, hi, welcome to Booking.com. What do you want? I just told you what I want, like 5 minutes ago. As that's kind of what disappointed me, and that's kind of what excited me when we first started working on this. So the follow-up to the story is that there is a lot of stuff that apps already do, right? So we have all these different things that's going on. So for one thing, we can send people coupon codes, and we can say, okay, Lieferando says you get 10% off your next pizza if you follow my newsletter email campaign. You just have to open up the app and type in the code and all that, and then you get your 10% off. That even works if you're putting out an ad that says, okay, you are on Facebook, you're in this particular segment, we'll give you 10% off. We do all this stuff. There's also a lot of people who, build in this kind of viral social referral thing, right? So we viral social referrals, it helps people to send a referral to their friends, tell them this is a really great game, super interesting, go ahead and play it. And the same thing happens, right? You send them a Facebook message or a tweet or an email that says, hi, your friend so-and-so has invited you to this game. And you go into the game, you install it, and the thing asks you which of your friends invited you, or were you invited in the first place? Your servers know that they were invited already. We already know this in the cloud or whatever. But your app doesn't. And so instead you have to punch in some kind of code. And then again, this example with the context that you were at, the searches that you were doing, all of this stuff we know in the server. We're already tracking the keywords in your big attribution analytics solution, but you're not doing anything with it. You're just looking at the keywords and you're saying, okay, this keyword works, this keyword doesn't work. Your app has no idea. And so if we let the app know this stuff, it could do all these kind of flows in a way where it doesn't have to ask you, it already knows, right? So if I asked for 10% off, I open the app after install and it says, okay, cool, 10% off. Which pizza do you want? Done. Or if I open a new game, it says, hi, we noticed that Peter invited you, that's super great, he gets 10 gold coins immediately, right? Done deal. Easy. And so this is really where the kind of story picks up again, because I get excited about this stuff, right? I think that this is a big opportunity. This is something that not a lot of people are doing at this point. And not enough of my clients have actually given it a shot yet. So I hunted around a little bit in sort of early September somewhere. I asked a few people that I'd kind of talked about this on, did you go on, did you implement it? So a few people came back and said, yes, we've done the social referral stuff. We can boost this up a lot better now. We got this kind of solution going. And a couple of guys whoa, never mind. Hold on. There we go. That's the guy. Totvidas, I still don't know how to pronounce his name, unfortunately. I think he's Lithuanian. He works at Vinted, which is this e-commerce shopping site. It's a multi-sided marketplace, right? So you put up an ad for a certain piece of, let's say you sell your clothes, I think, primarily, right? So you want to sell a shoe to someone else, probably 2 shoes rather than 1 shoe, or you sell a dress or whatever else. There's this kind of fashion marketplace app. As these guys were pretty advanced, like they were pretty good. We worked with them for quite some time, and what they did was they had lots of ads out, lots of campaigns running, lots of social outreach, all this kind of stuff. And so they had, a lot of ads that showed a particular product or a brand or category out of their catalog, right? And this was working well. They had it down. They'd optimized this stuff like we were just talking about. They'd gotten their CPIs down. They'd pulled up their conversion rate, and they were looking primarily at conversion to buyer. This makes sense for an e-commerce app. This was their one primary metric. And so they were using all our data to kind of figure out, okay, which ads, which sources work the best for us. And then, knowing that we could use this data a little bit further, then Totvidas, who then was the kind of growth hacker, experiments, product manager, he said, okay, well, we'll give it a shot. We'll do a small sample test, right? And what we will do is we'll run a specific ad, and we'll show a specific product brand. And when the user hits the app, we'll go ahead and we'll tailor the whole onboarding on that basis, right? So instead of asking them to sign up and asking them what were you looking for, what are you interested in, they just knew this already. So they pulled in this data and they said, okay, you clicked on an ad for a Nike shoe. Here are all the sports shoes, or here are all the Nike stuff. Here's a wish list for possible stuff that you might want to buy, right? and then they looked at their conversion to buyer. And what he told me when I asked him, being that we're both kind of number geeks, he told me that the conversion to buyer metric for this small scale test showed an improvement of 77%. Now, 77% over a shitty telephone line, I kind of asked him, okay, well, did you mean 17? Because that makes a little bit more sense. But no, 77% he saw in a small scale test given. And I would say, anyway, I mean, me personally, that's kind of remarkable, because when I talk to people about optimizations, we're talking 10, 5, 15, 20% max, right? Generally, you can move the metrics around a little bit, but you can't just flip them off the charts. That doesn't really happen. But there he was, and he said, well, this was a small test, and I think we're going to give it a shot on a larger scale. So I was pretty excited about that. And I think, the question that kind of came up to me and that we talked about a little bit at that point with Tautvīdas was why is this? Why can we make such a big optimization from what seems like kind of a small change to the onboarding flow? Like, it's not a big deal. We could give it a shot. I mean, they've done deep linking. They've done all this stuff. But this was kind of a small change to the initial install onboarding. Why does that give us almost 80% improvement in our core metric? And I think it's like what I was alluding to at the very start, right? Most mobile apps these days are pretty static. They don't respond to context very well, right? They'll onboard you in the same way regardless of what you were doing, regardless of where you're coming from. So when one app kind of goes against that, it's not really expected by the users. The users have the standard workflow in mind. They understand how mobile apps work. And one thing that they're not expecting is this data to be used in that kind of seamless manner. And I think as we maybe are moving forward a little bit with this kind of technology, it's going to get more common. People are going to be using it a little bit more. And honestly, if I was going to say one thing for 2015, 2016 is that these kind of techniques are going to be a lot more common. And probably if you were not quick enough, if you start looking at this in 2017, I imagine that you'll find it's more of a necessity than a simple little optimization. Okay, so this is my little story that I wanted to tell you about today. Now, if you are curious, actually I should show you guys this one again. If you are curious, we've actually put these case studies up on our website. We talk a little bit about this technology if you're curious. And we'll also be around a little bit, so that is the URL if you want to find out. And you can feel free to email me as well. That's my email address. I'll be around for a couple of hours, and my colleagues will be here as well. So if you have any questions, just pop up.